This is the Morso 5660 Insets Convector Stove. Actually, just I need to be quite quick and lighten it because there were a couple of embers still in the fire chamber just whenever I was loading the wood up. I probably could do, if I increased the air, a light just from those couple of embers, but it is a lot easier to use a fire lighter. I'm just using, again, one of these little burners. I'll set this in. This will light very, very quick because there were a few embers, so that there was a little bit of residual heat still left in the chamber. The door's still cold. the Morso 5660 Convector Stove. It's a cast iron construction. It's a cast iron chamber in behind it. The convection heat that comes out of this stove is absolutely incredible. In Holmes Chapel, where we're filming this, in our showroom there, we have 9 live flues and we have 9 stoves. This is one of the stoves that we light probably one of the most. It is almost our everyday stove. And that's because really the convection heat that the stove pumps out really does heat the showroom very well. It's a pleasure to burn the stove because it burns so clean, and again it's so forgiving. You know, even we can just see how quick this is lit. Granted, there were a couple of embers still in the bottom of the stove. The stove we can see is really just taken up. The air controls are fantastic, and I'm actually ready to close the door in this. If the stove was maybe a little bit cooler, we would have left the door open just for a few minutes longer, but we can see straight away that the stove's taken off. So let's watch it burn for a little bit. We've got the air control. There only is a single operation on this stove at the bottom, so we've got it over to the right, which is open as open to the maximum. The 5660 from Morso, it's a 6.6 kilowatt output. It also has a direct air feed, so you can connect it to outside air, so it's not consuming air from the room. It'll fit into a 54-inch opening. It can take a staggering half-metre size log, 500mm log. We can see the size of it's a wood burning only stove, so it has a flat base in the firebox. It only has secondary and tertiary air. We can see the tertiary air spilling over the back of the back of the fuel. And whenever we put fuel into this stove, we like to try and spread it across the firebox as much as possible. And again, as we saw just whenever we lit the stove, there was a little bit of residual heat. So again, we can turn it down a little bit just to see the controllability. That's it on the lowest setting. It normally will take several seconds to adjust. We're probably a little bit, just with the fuel, we're a little bit premature there to actually lower it for too long a period. I can see a little bit of smoke just still coming off the fuel. Again, the difference between smoke and flame is temperature. At a low temperature, we're smoky. At a high temperature, we're nice and clean. So we always want to try and get a stove built up as quickly as possible in temperature. We'll just keep it on the medium setting there. Morso in their collection have 3 inset convector stoves. This is actually the medium-sized one. The other one's a much smaller output, only just under 5 kilowatts, and the bigger one's around about the 8 kilowatt. The principle of the convection stove, I mean, there is, we're in the middle of winter here, and I'm standing with a t-shirt on. I mean, the heat that is coming off this stove is incredible. It works really on the principle of convection. Convection, hot air is coming really from the top of the stove. In behind, which you wouldn't be able to really see on the camera here, but in behind this there's a series of fins which are made out of cast iron on the top of the stove. Morso use a very long life, high chrome cast iron in all of their castings. With this heat sink, this cast iron heat sink, it's really given the top of the firebox a lot of heat. Hot air rises, so cold air is heavier than hot air is lighter, and if we can think of a hot air balloon and the principles of how it works. So the cooler air is lower down in the room, the hotter air is higher up in the room. So air is being drawn from the cooler part of the room lower down through the bottom of the stove here, and also a little bit through the sides. This then is circulating naturally through the heat of the stove, is circulating around the stove, and is then being really blown out of the top opening. When the stove gets up to temperature, which we're actually getting quite close to it now, but when the stove really gets up to temperature, you would actually think that there was a fan in the top of this convecting and blowing hot air into the room. We've had many customers standing in front of this stove, saying, does it need a connection to an electrical socket, because they believe that there's a fan, that's actually pumping the hot air out. It is that effective. We would, if you're in Cheshire or close by, we would recommend coming in, and you will see it burning. Yeah. I'm just going to close it down a little bit more. The wood still is quite dark in there, so whenever it carbonates, whenever it really, all the carbon's burnt off it, and we start to see nice white sort of speckles in the wood, that's really when we can really shut the air off down quite low. So our pre-fire's been burning roughly about 25 minutes now. We certainly could lower it down. There is still probably enough wood in there to let it run for a little bit longer. But what we'll do is we'll just spread the ashes out and just do a refuel with some wood. Whenever you're opening the door on a stove, you'll see that there is a slight pressure change. So to stop ash sort of coming out, especially we haven't emptied this stove for probably 2 or 3 weeks now, so there is quite a large bed of ash. You don't really need to empty a wood burning stove that often. The embers, the ash that sits offers a nice reflective bed and also insulates the embers. So what we normally do here is just spread the embers out. You definitely need gauntlets for this. This is very hot. And then set a few pieces of wood in. Any nice large pieces here. Put it in, and you'll see, just because the temperature inside this is so hot that it'll just take on immediately. So the fire's been burning a further 30 minutes now from the refuel. So that's it. This is the Inset Convector Stove 5660 from Morso. It's one of the Stoveyard's favourite stoves.